Hey y'all, it's Jocelyn. So I haven't made one of these videos in quite some time, but I felt compelled to just share some reflections as I am wrapping up my Sunday evening, going to church and serving, and having spent a really nice weekend with Aiden and Rashad on Friday, going to the gym, going to the mall, going to the movies. Yesterday, as many of you saw, we were in the garage just purging a lot of stuff. Some stuff we had not seen in 15, 20 years, whether it was his stuff from his early days in the military or our early days as a couple. And what I was learning as we were going through so many decades of our time, both together and apart, and going through our boxes and bins collectively and individually, was number one, grace. It was so evident going through some of the things that we were going through, how God was just carrying us through so many years of our uncertainty with ourselves, uncertainty with our paths, and certainly our uncertainty with what we were doing in marriage, sometimes what we were even doing as parents. We were going through Aiden's old report cards, and I was thinking back on the type of mom that I was in his early days, second, third grade, when he was getting so many compliments, as he always does, from year to year from his teachers. And I was a present mom then, and I've always managed to be a present mom, but it just took me back to the type of mom that I'm striving to be today. And I've always been a helicopter mom. I've always been so ingrained in every single thing that he does at school and out of school. But when I was going through some of his certificates, some of his old notebooks and drawings, it just took me back to a time where I had nothing but God's grace carrying me through, because I hadn't the slightest idea what I was doing as a mom. I had a great example, which I still do, in my mom, and thankfully she's still here, able to teach me about things, or how to look at things objectively from another perspective. Some of the things that Rashad was going through was his early days with some of his childhood friends. He was looking on a gift that one of his friends had made for his late aunt, and of course he didn't part with it. He kept it for common sense purposes. He's holding on to it. But it also, throughout those hours that we were in the garage yesterday, we were taking pauses together and individually, and we were just having our moments of reflection. And then we were just thinking about all of the good things we've shared together, all of the rough times we've endured together. And we would always come back to, man, we really have come a long way. And it's by no means because of how great we've been as husband and wife or mom and dad, but really it speaks to the true greatness of God, and how even though we strayed from him for different seasons during our lives, and I can truly say in our PCSing, our changes of station from state to state, we didn't always establish ourselves in a church. We always visited churches. I can go back to El Paso, and we spent about a year and a half in El Paso, and really that time was just rough, quite frankly, for me. And we probably attended a church, shout out to Rock Faith Church in El Paso, Texas. We probably attended maybe 10 times in that year and a half that we were in El Paso, just because I've always been raised to make church and fellowshipping with God's people a part of my regular living, and it's done well to keep me in community with people that can hug me when I need it, that can speak life into me when I need it. But really, that period of time was really rough, to the point to where Rashad pulled out a box yesterday, and immediately when I saw something in the box, I knew it was from that time while we were stationed in El Paso. And he said, "Do you want to go through this?" And I said, "No." And he was like, "The whole box?" And I said, "No, just toss it," because I did not want to revisit anything that reminded me of that time period. Now, did we have some great times in El Paso? Of course. But it just speaks to a time where I wasn't in the best place. We weren't in the best place. And it always reminded me of how far I strayed from what I feel God was wanting me to do at that time. But of course, he carried me through that time to teach me some things about me and about our marriage. And I can also speak to the time when he came across a big bottle, 3 big bottles of alcohol in the garage. And it took me back to not quite so long ago when I was relying on those very bottles in the garage to get through a very, very dark time in my life when my brother Rip was in the hospital and when he passed away. And I could look at those bottles and I didn't want to just turn my head from them, because ever so often God reminds me that I do need to go back to see what I was doing in that season, how I was carrying on my day-to-day in that season, so that I can look back to my present and realize just how much he was carrying me literally through those dark days. And so I feel like sometimes we try to hold on to things when God is really trying to prune us from those things. We try to hoard different parts of our past because obviously it reminds us of a nostalgic time. It reminds us of good times, of carefree moments that we had that we don't necessarily have today. But how often are we trying to cling tight to things that God just wants to release us from, in the physical sense and in the figurative sense? And so going through that period of cleaning out the garage with Rashad yesterday, and we still have so many more bins and Foot Lockers to go through, mostly of his time before we got married. But I'm sure we'll find some other things that take us back to other years that we've been together. But really, that was a cleansing experience for me, literally and figuratively. And I just wanted to share some of those reflections with you. Not to say that you have a garage that was as messy and cluttered as ours, but maybe there are certain things in your life that God wants you to examine in this season and find out and seek him to see, should I be discarding this? Lord, do you want me to hold on to this for whatever reason that you will reveal to me? I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. And I got a lot of feedback from some of you who really just say, y'all are so funny together. Y'all are, this or that. Rashad is so hilarious, which he is. Even though it was a frustrating and hot day yesterday, I wouldn't trade my partner that God has assigned to me for anything in this world. But going through that cleansing experience and that purging experience really just made me think to the pruning that God does in our lives from season to season. And really, it made me want to seek him even further to say, okay, now that I've gotten rid of that, what is it that you're calling me to now? What am I making space literally for in this season? And so I want to encourage you to continue to seek out those moments where God is trying to really invite new things into your life, but he's wanting you to discard some of the clutter that's been taking up too much space. And so I hope that helps some of you, any one of you. If so, I've done my job if it just reached one of you. So I appreciate you for listening. I always appreciate your kind and thoughtful words, on my stories and on my posts. And I want you to have a great week.